Wildlife photography is probably one of the most difficult genres of photography out there. Why is that, you may ask? Well, we as the photographer are not in complete control. It's a subject, wildlife, that are in control. And if you want to get near them, you want to photograph them, you want to film them, then it's essential that you have the skills to be able to do that. It isn't about having the best gear out there. Having the best gear doesn't guarantee you that you're going to get the images or the film that you want. Now, whether you're a beginner or whether you're a seasoned professional photographer, these 5 skills or 5 essential skills that I'm going to go through are essential for success in wildlife photography. In this video, what we're going to do is we're going to explore what I believe are the 5 essential skills that you need to be a successful wildlife photographer. And what we'll do is we'll look at the equipment, animal behaviour, fieldcraft, subject knowledge. We'll look at the number 1 skill which I believe is the most important, and finally I'll give you some top tips along the way. Okay, skill number 1 is all about knowing your equipment. As I said in the introduction, wildlife photography isn't just about having the best gear. Having the best gear doesn't mean that you're going to get the best images. What it is about knowing your equipment. That means knowing your camera inside out, almost like an extension of yourself. When that perfect moment arrives, the last thing you want to be doing is fumbling around with switches and dials. It's too late and you're going to miss your opportunity. Now, it's not just about the camera, it's also about the lens. Do you know how your lens operates? Do you understand image stabilization within the lens? Do you know where the switches are? Do you know what they mean? I made a separate video on wildlife photography and the lenses that I would recommend you to use, and again I'll leave a link for that down below. In addition to the camera and the lens, it's also about how you actually support your camera. How you support your camera is going to determine the shutter speed that you're going to use, and that's going to depend on whether you're mobile or whether you're static, whether you're going to be hand holding, whether you're going to be using a tripod, a monopod, on the ground with a ground pod, or using a beanbag. Again, I made a separate video on how to support your camera, and again I'll leave a link for that below. Now, you might be hearing a certain sound as I'm filming this video, and actually what I've got is a pair of buzzards above me. It's a beautiful day today and they're flying around on the thermals and calling out, so that sound is a buzzard. Top tip: back button focusing. Back button focusing is probably the number 1 choice for wildlife photographers. Why do wildlife photographers prefer back button focusing, and what are the benefits? Well, it gives you improved focus tracking, especially on moving subjects. It allows you to utilise faster shooting capabilities. The camera isn't constantly re-engaging when you're only using the shutter button. Now, back button focusing varies from camera to camera. There are plenty of videos out there on YouTube on back button focusing for your specific cameras. If you've not tried back button focusing, go onto YouTube, have a look at why wildlife photographers prefer it, try and use it. It can be quite frustrating to begin with because it's something that you're not used to, but believe you me, stick with it. It's by far the best way to use your camera for wildlife photography. Skill number 2 in the 5 essential skills for wildlife photography has got everything to do about knowing your subject and doing your research on it. Now, it may seem straightforward that that's something that you would do for any subject that you will want to photograph. However, again, wildlife and not you will dictate what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and where it's going to happen. So therefore, you need to have a good knowledge of your subject to know where they're going to be, when they're going to be there, and what they're likely to be doing. Now, sitting in a hide that you pay for is, by all means, I've done it many times and it's a great experience, believe you me, but there isn't really a great deal of skill to it because you're really expecting the subject to come to you, and that's what you're paying for. Where the real skill comes is when you're on your own, out in the field, trying to find a subject, getting into position to film the subject and photograph it, and being able to do so without that subject knowing that you're there. It's a real challenge. Now, I did a 3-part series on how to on badgers. That was about finding them, watching them and photographing them. And I spent 12 months doing that, and I did a lot of research into it. And the type of things that I used to do my research were things like YouTube, going on to Google, talking to local wildlife groups, talking to other wildlife photographers, trail cameras. Once I was certain that there was badgers in that area, I put trail cameras out onto the ground, and again I did a 3-part series on trail cameras, and again I'll leave a link for that below. So knowing your subject and doing your research is an essential skill to being a wildlife photographer. So what's my approach for researching my wildlife subject? Well, I apply what's known as the 5 W's. That's the who, the what, the when, the where and the why. So who, in this instance, great crested grebes. Very, very, very similar. So which one's the male, which one's the female, can you tell? It's important that you understand which one's the male and which one's the female when it comes to the rituals that they go through in the breeding season. What actually describes the event or the situation that's happening in front of you? So things like, for instance, red deer. Spent a lot of time up in Scotland photographing red deer. So what do red deer eat? Understanding their diet, their habits, where they're going to go to eat, very important. When? When is it likely that that subject is going to turn up, and what type of event is going to happen when? So again, very important to understand. In the case of the badgers, when is the best time to go and see badgers? You can't just expect just to roll up and the badgers be in front of you. That doesn't happen. You have to be in position long before the badgers emerge out of the ground. So again, you find that out through your research. Where? Where are you going to find certain subjects? So in this instance, the marsh area. Where are you going to find the marsh area? What type of habitat are you going to find it in? Again, you've got to do your research to find it out. The why. Keep asking your questions. Why are they here? Why are they doing that? So for instance, waxwings. Why do waxwings come to the UK in the winter? There's one reason and one reason only, and that's food. Waxwings absolutely love berries. So again, bit of research on the waxwing. You find out when they're going to come here, why they're going to come here, where you're going to find them, and what they're going to be eating. The 5 W's that I apply to my research in wildlife photography. Top tip, local knowledge. Gaining local knowledge of the area that you live in and that you operate in is by far going to increase your chances of getting the wildlife images that you're after. Try and connect with social media, things like local wildlife groups, go onto Facebook, etc. just to see what's going on in your area. I'm a member of a local bird group, and they produce a monthly newsletter with all the sightings on it. That keeps you up to date, you know what's in your area. Set up a map of your local area and highlight on that map where certain subjects are. So where you're going to find hares, where you're going to find deer, where you're going to find certain birds. And I have my own local area map that I've done that with. Speak to other local wildlife photographers. Sometimes wildlife photographers are reluctant to share information, and that's understandable to a certain extent. But try and have relationships with other local photographers if they're willing to share knowledge with them of what's going on in the area. Skill number 3 is all about animal behaviour. It's arguably the most non-technical skill that there is in wildlife photography. Studying your subject's habits, its movements, its feeding patterns, and how they communicate together allows you to anticipate what their actions are going to be or what's going to happen next by understanding animal behaviour. So you need to look at things like activity patterns. What time of the day does your subject come out? Are they nocturnal? Are they diurnal? Are you going to see them first thing in the morning, last thing at night? So you need to look at what their activity patterns are. For bird photography, certainly bird calls are vitally important. Vitally important. Bird call not only alerts you to a bird's presence, by understanding certain birds' calls, it can also alert you to the presence of other subjects. The alarm call of the blackbird, for me, outside in the British countryside, tells me 2 things. Either it's seen me and I've disturbed it, or there is a predator that blackbird has seen and that can give you an opportunity to get things like stoats, weasels, foxes, sparrowhawks as well, predators to the blackbird. Understanding a subject's social structure, so in other words, do they live alone, do they live in pairs, how do they live, or do they live in groups? So for instance, badgers, going back to badgers again, badgers live in groups of what are known as clans. Within a badger set, you can get, a clan could be as many as 3 or 4 badgers, but it could even go up to as many as 12. So understanding your subject's social structure is also important. One of the most important aspects of animal behaviour to understand is what's known as the circle of fear. Now I covered this in a couple of videos that I've done in the past, and I'll leave a link to observation skills video down below, and it's going to be a subject that I'm going to do on its own. Knowing and understanding what's known as the circle of fear is absolutely critical for you when you are out in the ground. So if you're approaching wildlife, you need to be able to read the situation. You need to know, are they just going about their business as normal? Are they a bit skittish? Are they aware that something's going on around them? Have they been alerted to something? By understanding that structure of events within the circle of fear, believe you me, allows you to get closer to your subject. The more that you know and you can predict about and anticipate the actions and the movements of your subject, the closer you're going to get to it. And for me, the circle of fear when it comes to animal behaviour is critical to understand. What I want to do now is just take a quick time out and give you a look forward to a video that I'm working on at the moment, which is about hand-holding tips and techniques. Using and hand-holding a long lens camera for wildlife photography is very much like handling a rifle if you're actually shooting it. Now I spent 24 years in the military, so if there's one thing I do know about, it's how to handle a rifle and how to use it. And the principles that I learnt in the military, applying them to how to handhold and use a camera are very similar, and by far, I believe, the best way to teach someone how to handhold a camera. Look forward to hand-holding tips and techniques coming soon from Kevin Hatley Photography. Top tip, the Merlin app. If you don't have the Merlin app, I highly recommend that you get it. It's free to download, and it's all about birds recognition and especially bird calls. Now, since having and getting the Merlin app onto my phone, I've found that my knowledge of bird calls has greatly improved. It's a fantastic little app, and it will tell you exactly what birds are in the immediate vicinity. If you're new to bird photography, there's one bird call that I would urge you to learn, and that's the blackbird. The blackbird has not just a call, it has a song, and it has an alert. Now that alert is very important. It's the one bird that will give the game away when you're out in the field. The Merlin app is a fantastic thing to have on your phone. Skill number 4 is fieldcraft. If you want to get up close to wildlife, in their habitat, remember their habitat, you have to have a good understanding of fieldcraft and fieldcraft skills. Now, it's not about being an SAS sniper, it's just about understanding the basic principles of fieldcraft, applying them in the field. That again is, I believe, an essential skill to being a wildlife photographer. Now, I spent 24 years in the military. I dress in camouflage gear all the time because I'm comfortable in it. As I said, it's not about being an SAS sniper, but applying basic principles like wearing drab clothing that kind of blends in with the environment just allows you to be able to operate in the field and photograph your wildlife. I did a complete series on Fieldcraft Skills, and again I'll leave a link for that below. Some basic principles are: be especially careful about your face and your hands. They are very important. They will give you away. You can wear all the camouflage gear you want, but if your hands aren't covered up, and your face isn't covered up, you'll shine like a beacon. Movement. Wildlife have an absolutely incredible range of senses and awareness about what's happening in and around their environment. They're always on the alert. So how you move in the field is very important. So you need to move slowly, quietly, and you need to pay attention to the wind direction, which is important. Cover. Try and use natural cover and utilize things like trees and bushes ditches, to break up your outline and to hide your approach. Top tip, hotspots. Learn to recognise hotspots in your local area where wildlife is likely to be active. It's actually mid-July at the moment. We're going through a bit of a hot spell at the moment. So water, very vital to the survival of wildlife. If you know of any little water holes, absolutely ideal to check them out as a hotspot where wildlife will gather and give you that opportunity to get the photographs that you're after. Resting areas. Certain species, especially deer, have what's known as bedding areas where they'll actually bed down. Do you know how to recognise a bedding down area? If you do find one, it's a great idea to put a trail camera out on one just to find out exactly what's in the area. Tracks and signs. Can you read tracks and signs? Again, I did a video on that and I found it very useful when I did my 3-part badger series, and I'll leave a link for that below. The number one skill that I believe you need for a wildlife photographer is to have, excuse me, is to have patience and perseverance. What patience and perseverance does is it separates those photographers from others who get too impatient, are restless, moving around. So it's all about just taking your time, slowing down and being prepared, as I said, for long waits. Now I see that there are 3 key areas in applying patience and perseverance when you're out in the field. Firstly, recce. Time spent on reconnaissance is seldom wasted. That's a phrase that I've taken from the military. I did a complete video on how to carry out a wildlife photography recce, and again I'll leave a link for that below. The more time that you spend on recce, the greater you're going to improve your chances of getting the photographs that you're after. Next principle when it comes to patience and perseverance is all about comfort. Now, as I've said, you've got to be prepared for long waits, and if you're not comfortable and you're moving around, there's only one thing that's going to happen, is that you are going to be disturbing any subject or any wildlife that are in that area. So you need to try and get as comfortable as possible. Put away any distractions, things like mobile phones. Seems pretty obvious, but you need to make sure it's switched off and just put it away, put it out the way. Noisy snacks. You don't want to be sitting opening a bag of crisps and eating a bag of crisps. It just doesn't make sense. So think about noise as well, distractions. Deodorants. Again, if you're out in the field on your own, you don't want to be wearing aftershaves or perfumes or deodorants. Things like badgers and foxes and deer will sniff you out a mile away. As I've said, wildlife photography is very unpredictable. You'll spend many hours, many hours being unsuccessful, and that's where that number one skill, patience and perseverance, comes in. Stick at it. Don't give in. Have you done a good recce? Have you got into a good position? Are you comfortable? Get rid of any distractions. All those sorts of things are what you need to be applying to be patient and to persevere at trying to get the images that you're after. Okay, what I want to do now is just leave you with some of my favourite wildlife images, and I hope that you enjoy them. Thanks for watching this edition of Kevin Hatley Photography and the 5 essential skills to wildlife photography. I hope you've enjoyed it just as much as I have filming it, as I always do. And I always keep saying that that's the reason why I love coming out to places like this, is to be able to put together a video that I can share with like-minded people around the world. All I would ask is, if you've liked it, could you hit the like button? Could I ask you to subscribe to the channel? It's completely free, doesn't cost anything. And again, that just allows me to raise the level of the channel and get it out to more people. So, until the next time, stay safe, take care, and I hope to see you soon. Bye for now.